Single mother saw her son sharing his lunch with a boy, unaware he's the Vampire King's lost child. The pale boy's fangs gleamed in the fluorescent cafeteria light as he bit into the sandwich, and Emma's heart stopped, not from fear, but from the impossible recognition that flickered across his ancient eyes when they met hers through the crowd of chattering children. Wait, before the next revelation happens. If this mystery has already captivated you, let us know where you're following this story from. To make sure you don't miss any unexpected alliances or awakened powers, subscribe and join our circle. The game is about to change. Now, back to the scene. Emma Chen pressed her fingers against the cold glass of Lincoln Elementary's cafeteria window, her breath fogging the pain as she watched her 8-year-old son, Marcus, slide half of his peanut butter sandwich across the lunch table to the thin boy sitting alone in the corner. The boy, she'd never seen him before, had skin so pale it seemed to glow under the harsh lights, and hair black as a moonless night that fell across his face in tangled waves. She'd been dropping off Marcus's forgotten math homework when she'd paused at the window, drawn by some instinct she couldn't name. Now, watching the strange boy accept her son's offering with a solemnness that seemed far too old for his small frame, Emma felt a chill that had nothing to do with the October wind rattling the windows. The boy ate slowly, deliberately, as if he'd forgotten how food worked. Marcus chatted animatedly beside him, his hands moving in the excited gestures Emma knew meant he was telling one of his elaborate stories. The pale boy listened with an intensity that made Emma's skin prickle. There was something wrong about the way he held himself, something that whispered of danger, even as he sat there in his oversized, donated clothes, accepting kindness from her generous, naive son. Emma's phone buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it, unable to look away from the scene before her. The boy turned his head suddenly, directly toward the window where she stood. For a moment, their eyes locked, and Emma felt the world tilt sideways. His eyes were violet, not the blue-purple of contacts, but a deep, genuine violet that seemed to hold centuries of sorrow and something else, something hungry. The boy's lips moved, forming a single word she couldn't hear through the glass. Then he turned back to Marcus, and the moment shattered. Emma stumbled backward, her heart hammering against her ribs. She'd been a single mother for 6 years, ever since Marcus's father had disappeared without explanation one night, leaving only a note that read, "I'm sorry, keep him safe, they're looking." She'd thought he'd run off with another woman, abandoned them for something better. Now, staring at this impossible child with violet eyes, she wondered if maybe she'd been wrong about everything. "Mrs. Chen?" The principal's voice made her jump. Dr. Sarah Martinez stood in the hallway, her expression concerned. "Are you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." Emma forced a smile, though her hands trembled. "I'm fine. Just, who is that boy? The one sitting with Marcus?" Dr. Martinez moved to the window, peering into the cafeteria. Her brow furrowed. "Which boy?" "The pale one, black hair. He's right," Emma pointed, but the chair beside Marcus was empty. Her son sat alone now, carefully wrapping up the uneaten half of the sandwich, tucking it into his backpack with careful hands. "I don't see anyone," Dr. Martinez said slowly. "Marcus has been sitting alone for the past 10 minutes. I noticed because usually he's so social. Is everything okay at home?" Emma's throat went dry. "Yes, everything's fine. I should go." She walked to her car on autopilot, her mind spinning. She'd seen the boy. She knew she had. The violet eyes, the too pale skin, the way he'd moved with ancient grace in a child's body. She'd seen him. But Dr. Martinez hadn't. Emma sat in her Toyota for 20 minutes, watching the school's front entrance, waiting for the lunch period to end. When the bell rang and children began flowing out for recess, she scanned every face, looking for black hair and impossible eyes. He wasn't there. Marcus bounced out with his usual energy, immediately joining a kickball game, his backpack, with its carefully wrapped sandwich half, bouncing against his shoulders. Emma watched until the recess monitors began ushering children back inside, but the pale boy never appeared. She drove home in a daze, her hands gripping the steering wheel too tight. Their apartment was in the older part of town, a second-floor walk-up above a used bookstore that smelled of paper and dust. It was small but cozy, filled with Marcus's artwork and the life they'd built together from the ashes of abandonment. Emma made tea she didn't drink, staring at the wall of photographs she'd assembled over the years. Marcus as a baby, his father's face half turned away from the camera in every shot, as if even then he'd been trying to hide. Marcus at 3, at 5, at 7, growing up so fast it made her heart ache. And in the most recent photo, taken just last week at the park, Marcus grinning at the camera, while behind him, Emma's cup slipped from her hand, shattering on the kitchen floor. Behind Marcus in the photo, barely visible in the shadows of the oak trees, stood a boy with pale skin and dark hair, a boy who shouldn't have been there, a boy she hadn't noticed when she'd taken the picture. She grabbed the frame with shaking hands, bringing it close. The boy's face was partially obscured, but she could see enough. The sharp features, the too still posture, and yes, if she looked closely, the hint of violet in eyes that seemed to glow slightly in the dappled shadow. Her phone rang, making her jump. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something, that same instinct that had drawn her to the cafeteria window, made her swipe to accept. Emma Chen. The voice on the other end was male, deep, and carried an accent she couldn't place. Old world, maybe. Eastern European. It slid over her name like silk over stone. We need to talk about your son. Who is this? My name is Lucien Moreau. I am looking for someone. A child who was taken from me 5 years ago, and I believe your son has found him. Emma's blood ran cold. I don't know what you're talking about. The boy he's been sharing his lunch with, the one no one else can see. Lucien's voice dropped lower, and Emma heard something in it that made her lizard brain scream danger. That's my son, Mrs. Chen, and I've been searching for him for a very long time. That's impossible. Is it? There was a pause, and Emma could hear city sounds on the other end of the line. Traffic, distant sirens. He was close. Tell me, Mrs. Chen, have you noticed anything unusual about this boy? The way the light seems to bend around him? The way shadows cling to him like living things? The way he doesn't breathe? Emma's hand flew to her mouth. She had noticed. In the cafeteria, watching him eat her son's sandwich, she'd realized with a sick feeling that his chest never rose or fell. "What is he?" she whispered. "He's my son, and he's in danger, more than you can possibly imagine." Lucien's voice took on an urgent edge. "I need to meet with you, Mrs. Chen, tonight, before they find him." "Before who finds him?" "The ones who took him from me. The ones who've been keeping him hidden, using his power for their own purposes. The ones who will kill anyone who gets in their way, including an 8-year-old boy who's too kind for his own good." The threat hung in the air, unspoken but clear. Marcus was in danger simply by showing compassion to the wrong child. Emma's maternal instincts surged, overriding her fear. "If you touch my son—" "I have no interest in harming your son, Mrs. Chen. Quite the opposite. But I cannot say the same for my enemies. They've been tracking my son for years, and now that he's revealed himself, even slightly, they will come, and they will not care who stands in their path." Why didn't anyone else see him? At the school, I mean. The principal looked right at him and saw nothing. Because he's learned to hide. It's a survival mechanism, something he developed during his captivity. He can make himself unnoticeable to most humans. But your son sees him, and you see him. Lucian paused. That should not be possible, unless... Unless what? Unless you have blood of the old families. Unless someone in your lineage had contact with my kind long ago. It's rare, but it happens. The sight can skip generations, then resurface. His voice sharpened with interest. Tell me about Marcus's father. Emma felt her world tilting again. He left 6 years ago, just disappeared. Did he? Lucian asked softly. Or was he taken? Tell me, Mrs. Chen, did he ever mention a man named Cassius, or talk about feeling watched? Emma's knees went weak. She sank into a kitchen chair, her mind reeling back through memories she'd tried to bury. David had been paranoid in those last months, always looking over his shoulder. He'd started carrying iron nails in his pocket. She'd thought it was some weird anxiety tic. He'd insisted they keep the curtains drawn at night and hung dried herbs above every door and window. He said they were good luck, Emma whispered. The herbs. He said they'd protect us. Wolfsbane and vervain, Lucian said grimly. Protection against supernatural creatures. Your husband knew, Mrs. Chen. He knew what was hunting him, and he ran to keep you safe. Hunting him? Why? Because he had the sight. Because he worked for me once, before he tried to leave. Before he stole something precious from my treasury. A protective amulet that could hide someone, even from me. Lucian's voice went hard. An amulet that could hide a child. Emma's hand went to the silver chain around her neck, the one David had given her the night he'd left. She'd thought it was just a locket, a farewell gift. Now she pulled it out, opening it to reveal not a photo, but a small, intricately carved symbol she'd never understood. You're wearing it, Lucian said, and she realized he could see her somehow. She spun around, searching her apartment, but saw nothing. I can feel it now that I'm close enough. That amulet is protecting you and your son from being found. It's why Cassius's hunters never tracked you down. But it won't protect you from what's coming now that my son has been seen. What do you want from me? Meet me, tonight. Bring the amulet and I'll explain everything. I'll tell you what your husband was, what your son might become, and how we're going to save both our children from the war that's coming. Emma closed her eyes. Every rational part of her brain screamed that this was insane, that she should hang up and call the police and run. But she thought of Marcus, so sweet and trusting, sharing his lunch with a boy no one else could see. She thought of the violet eyes that had looked at her through the cafeteria window, holding centuries of pain and hope in equal measure. Where? She asked. The old St. Michael's Church, the one that burned down 30 years ago. 11 o'clock, when the veil between worlds is thinnest. Lucian's voice softened slightly. Come alone, Mrs. Chen, and trust that I have no more wish to see innocents harmed than you do. My son has been lost to me for 5 years. I will do whatever it takes to protect him now that I've found him. Even if it means forming an alliance with a human I have every reason not to trust. Why shouldn't you trust me? Because your husband betrayed me. Because he chose protecting his family over his oath to me. Because love makes people do reckless, dangerous things. Lucian paused. But it also makes them brave. And we're going to need all the bravery we can muster for what comes next. The line went dead. Emma sat in her kitchen, staring at the amulet in her hand, at the symbol she'd carried against her heart for 6 years without knowing its power. Outside, the October sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of blood and amber. She thought of Marcus, who would be home in 2 hours, full of stories about his day and questions about dinner and homework. Sweet, innocent Marcus, who saw the invisible and shared his lunch with ghosts. Emma closed her hand around the amulet, feeling its slight warmth against her palm. She had a choice to make. She could pretend this afternoon had never happened, could tuck the strange phone call away with all the other things she didn't understand about David's disappearance, and go back to her safe, simple life. Or she could walk into the darkness and demand answers. She picked up her phone and called her neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, who watched Marcus sometimes when Emma had to work late. She arranged for her to stay with him tonight, citing a work emergency. Then she went to her bedroom and opened the closet, pushing aside her work clothes until she found the wooden box hidden in the back. David had left it for her with the note. She'd opened it once, 6 years ago, seen the contents, and closed it again, too frightened to process what it meant. Now she lifted the lid with steady hands and looked at what her husband had left behind. A silver dagger with symbols etched along the blade. A vial of clear liquid labeled "Blessed Water" in David's handwriting. A book bound in cracked leather, its pages filled with handwritten notes about supernatural creatures, their weaknesses, their politics, their wars. And tucked into the back, a photograph of David standing beside a tall man with dark hair and sharp features, both of them smiling slightly at the camera. Emma pulled out the photograph, studying the man next to her husband. He was handsome in an otherworldly way, with high cheekbones and pale skin and eyes that even in the faded photo seemed to hold their own light. Written on the back in David's hand, Lucien Moreau, 2010, London, before everything went to hell. So this was the vampire king who had just called her, the man whose child had been stolen, the man her husband had betrayed. Emma spent the next hours reading David's journal, learning about a world that existed in the shadows of her own. She read about vampire dynasties stretching back thousands of years, about the Council of Ancients that governed supernatural politics, about territorial wars and blood oaths, and children born with abilities that made them targets. She read about Lucien Moreau, king of the European court, one of the most powerful vampires in existence. And she read about his son, born 5 years ago to a human mother who had died in childbirth, leaving Lucien with a half-human child who possessed abilities no one had ever seen before. The boy can walk in daylight, David had written. He has his father's strength but his mother's mortality, at least partially. Lucien believes he could be the bridge between our worlds, the key to ending centuries of war. But others see him only as a threat. Cassius Blackthorn especially. He tried to have the child killed twice before I helped Lucien's guards capture the assassins. But the war is coming, and when it does, this child will be the prize everyone fights over. The last entry was dated 3 days before David disappeared. Lucien's son was taken tonight during a raid on the estate. Security was betrayed from the inside. 6 guards dead, and the boy just gone. Lucien is insane with grief and rage. He's threatening to burn the world to find him. But I've made a choice. I've stolen the Amulet of Shadows, the one thing that could hide the boy from all of us. I'm leaving tonight. Emma and Marcus will never be safe as long as I'm with them. But maybe, if I can find Lucien's son and keep him hidden, I can buy them time. If you're reading this, Emma, I'm sorry. I loved you. I love our son. And I'm sorry I brought this darkness into your lives. The amulet will protect you both. Wear it always. And if anyone comes asking about a pale boy with violet eyes, run. But Emma hadn't run, and Marcus, with the sight he'd inherited from his father, had done what children do, had shown kindness to someone who looked lonely. Now the darkness David had tried to keep at bay was coming for them all. Emma tucked the dagger into her jacket and hung the amulet back around her neck. She kissed a sleeping Marcus on the forehead when she got home, whispered to Mrs. Rodriguez that she'd be back by midnight, and drove through the darkening streets toward St. Michael's. The ruined church stood on a hill at the edge of town, its burned skeleton stark against the night sky. The fire had happened before Emma moved here, but she knew the story. A lightning strike during a violent storm, the building consumed in minutes, miraculously with no casualties because it had been empty at the time. Now it was just a shell, walls of blackened stone surrounding a nave open to the stars. Emma parked on the street below and climbed the hill on foot, her hand on the dagger in her jacket. The October wind whipped around her, carrying the scent of dead leaves and something else, something older, magic maybe, or just the weight of secrets about to be revealed. Lucien Moreau stood in the center of the ruined nave, his back to her, looking up at the stars visible through the absent roof. He was tall, just as had been in the photograph, dressed in dark clothes that seemed to absorb the moonlight. When he turned to face her, Emma's breath caught. He was beautiful in the way ancient things are beautiful, cold and perfect and utterly inhuman. His features were sharp enough to cut, his skin luminous in the darkness, and his eyes. His eyes were the same violet as his son's, but where the boy's had held innocence and hope, Lucien's held only grief and barely restrained violence. "Emma Chen," he said, his voice echoing slightly in the stone chamber. "Thank you for coming. I know this requires considerable courage." "Or considerable stupidity," Emma replied, keeping her distance. "You'll forgive me if I don't get any closer." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Your husband taught you well. Yes, keep your distance. Keep your hand on that dagger he left you, though I assure you it would do little good if I meant you harm." He moved slightly, a blur of motion that had him suddenly 15 feet to her left, though she hadn't seen him cross the space. "I am very old, Mrs. Chen, and very powerful. If I wanted to hurt you, you'd already be dead. That's not as comforting as you might think." "No, I suppose not." He moved again, this time climbing one of the ruined walls with impossible grace, perching on top of it like a gargoyle. "But I need you to understand what we're dealing with. I need you to see what I am, so you can comprehend the danger we face. My enemies are like me, ancient, powerful, ruthless, and they've had my son for 5 years, doing God's know what to him, using him, experimenting on him, teaching him to hide from even me." Emma's heart clenched. "The boy at the school, how do you know it's your son?" "Because I felt him." Lucien's voice cracked slightly, the first real emotion breaking through. "For 5 years, I felt nothing. The bond between us was severed, blocked somehow. But today, for just a moment, it flickered back to life. He dropped his guard, allowed himself to be seen, and I felt him like a light in the darkness. My son is alive, Mrs. Chen." "He's alive, and he's here, and I will tear this town apart stone by stone to find him." "He's with Marcus," Emma said quietly. "I don't know how or why, but there's a connection between them. My son keeps talking about his new friend, but I thought he meant someone at school. Now I realize he's been seeing your son all along, maybe for weeks." Lucien went very still. "How long?" "I don't know. Marcus mentioned a quiet friend about a month ago, but I didn't think much of it. He has such an active imagination." Emma pulled out her phone, scrolling to the photo from the park. "But he's been there, in the background. I just didn't notice until today." She held up the phone, and Lucien was suddenly in front of her, moving faster than her eyes could track. He stared at the screen, and Emma saw his hands tremble as he reached out, stopping just short of touching the image. "Nikolai," he whispered. "My son, Nikolai." His fingers traced the air above the phone screen, and Emma saw tears glittering in his violet eyes. "He's so thin, so pale. What have they done to you, my boy?" The raw anguish in his voice made Emma's own eyes sting. Whatever else Lucien Moreau might be, vampire, king, predator, he was also a father who'd lost his child. "Can you help him?" she asked softly. Lucien pulled back, composing himself. "I can, if we can find where they're keeping him. The bond I felt was brief, but it gave me a direction. North of here, in the old industrial district. There are warehouses there, abandoned buildings, perfect for hiding someone you don't want found. But why reveal himself now? Why risk being seen?" "Because of your son," Lucien met her eyes. "Children like Marcus, who have the sight but haven't been trained to fear us, they're rare. Most humans with the old blood learn early to hide their ability, to pretend they see nothing. But Marcus is innocent. He saw a lonely child and offered friendship." And Nikolai, after 5 years of isolation and God's know-what abuse, couldn't resist that kindness. For just a moment, he wanted to be a normal boy having lunch with a friend. So he let himself be real. Emma felt her throat tighten. "And now we've put them both in danger. Now we have a chance to end this." Lucien began pacing, his movements predatory and precise. "Cassius doesn't know I've found the trail. He thinks the bond is still blocked, that I'm searching blindly. But we can use that. We can use Marcus." "Absolutely not." Emma stepped forward, her hand tightening on the dagger. "You're not using my son as bait. Not as bait, as a beacon." Lucien stopped, facing her. "Nikolai revealed himself to Marcus. He trusts your son. Maybe the only person he's trusted in years. If Marcus can maintain that connection, keep Nikolai coming back, we can track where he goes, find the place they're keeping him, and then I can get him back. And the people holding him?" Lucien's smile was cold and sharp. "They will learn what happens when someone takes what belongs to me. That's murder. That's justice." He moved closer, and Emma forced herself not to retreat. "They took my son, Mrs. Chen. They killed his mother. They've tortured him for 5 years, using his powers for their own gain while keeping him from me. What would you do if someone took Marcus? What lengths would you go to for your child?" Emma thought of Marcus's sweet face, his ready laugh, his generous heart. She thought of someone hurting him, using him, keeping him locked away from light and love and safety. And she knew with absolute certainty that she would burn the world for him. "Anything," she whispered. "I'd do anything. Then you understand." Lucien's voice softened. "Help me get my son back. Let Marcus continue his friendship with Nikolai. Use that connection to find where they're hiding him. And when we do, I swear to you on the blood that made me, I will make sure your son is protected. Whatever comes, Marcus will survive this. That's my oath." Emma looked at this ancient creature, this vampire king who'd once been human himself, long ago in some distant century. She thought of David's journal, the entries about Lucien's rare honor among his kind, his reputation for keeping his word, even when it cost him. She thought of the pale boy with violet eyes who'd accepted her son's sandwich with such careful grace, and she made her decision. "All right," she said, "but we do this my way. No one gets hurt unless absolutely necessary, and Marcus doesn't know the truth. He thinks he's helping a friend, and that's all he'll ever know." "Agreed." Lucien held out his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Emma took it. His skin was cold as marble, his grip gentle but firm. "We have an alliance, Emma Chen. Together, we'll get our children back. Both of them, Emma corrected. We get both our children back safe. Both, Lucian agreed. Then he glanced at the sky, where the moon was rising toward its zenith. It's almost midnight, the witching hour, when magic runs strongest. There's something else you should know, before we proceed. Something about your son. Emma's stomach dropped. What about Marcus? The sight isn't the only thing he inherited from his father. Your husband, David, he was more than just someone with old blood. He was a hunter, yes, but before that, he was something else. A child of the Twilight clans, born of a human mother and a father who was not quite human. Lucian released her hand, turning away. Your son has power in his blood, Emma. Dormant now, but it will wake as he grows. The ability to see us is just the beginning. Emma felt the world tilt again. What are you saying? I'm saying Marcus is like Nikolai in some ways. Not the same, but parallel. A bridge between worlds. And that makes him valuable. It also makes him a target. Lucian looked back at her, his violet eyes intense. Cassius will come for him, eventually. Once he realizes Marcus can see Nikolai, can potentially find him when we can't, he'll either try to use your son or eliminate him. We need to be ready for that. Emma pulled the dagger from her jacket, holding it in both hands. Then we'd better make sure that doesn't happen. Lucian's smile was approving and terrifying in equal measure. Your husband chose well when he fell in love with you. You have a warrior's heart, Emma Chen. I have a mother's heart, she corrected, and anyone who threatens my child will learn what that means. They stood in the ruined church, human and vampire, both parents fighting for their children in a war they hadn't chosen. Outside, the wind howled, carrying the scent of coming rain and change. The game, as Lucian had said, was about to begin, and Emma Chen, single mother and waitress, was going to learn just how much courage she had when everything she loved hung in the balance. The next morning, Emma made pancakes while Marcus chattered about his homework and a science project due next week. She watched him eat, studying his face for signs of the power Lucian claimed ran in his blood. But she saw only her son, sweet, funny, innocent Marcus, who had no idea his life was about to become very complicated. "Mom," Marcus looked up from his plate. "Can I ask you something?" Emma's heart skipped. "Of course, honey." "The boy I've been eating lunch with, Nick, he's different. Other kids can't see him, but I can. Does that mean something's wrong with me?" Emma set down her coffee cup carefully. "No, baby, nothing's wrong with you. Some people can see things others can't, like how some people can hear sounds others miss or see colors more brightly. It's a gift." "A gift?" Marcus's eyes lit up. "Really? Really? Your father had it too." Emma reached across the table, taking his hand. "But Marcus, this is important. This gift, it can be dangerous. The things you see, the people like Nick, they're special. And sometimes other people are looking for them. Do you understand?" Marcus nodded seriously. "Nick said that. He said bad people are looking for him. That's why he has to hide. But he feels safe with me." His expression turned worried. "Am I putting him in danger by being his friend?" Emma's heart broke a little. "No, honey. I think you might be the only safe thing in his life right now. But I need you to be careful. And I need you to tell me everything Nick says about where he lives or who he's with. Can you do that?" "To help him?" "To help him," Emma confirmed, hating that she was using her son's kindness for this purpose, but knowing there was no other way. He needs someone on his side, Marcus, and we're going to be that someone. Marcus grinned, and Emma saw David in that smile. David, who'd run to protect them, who'd stolen a magical amulet and hidden a vampire child and paid the ultimate price for his loyalty. She wondered where he was now, if he was even still alive, if he'd ever know that his son was following in his footsteps, seeing the invisible and helping the helpless. "I'll ask Nick more about his family today," Marcus promised. "Maybe we can help him go home." "Maybe we can," Emma agreed, thinking of Lucian's grief-stricken face, the way his hands had trembled, reaching for his son's image. That's exactly what we're going to try to do. After she dropped Marcus at school, Emma drove to the old industrial district Lucian had mentioned. It was a maze of abandoned buildings and rusted infrastructure, the kind of place people avoided after dark. She parked on the outskirts and walked, trying to look casual, just someone cutting through on their way somewhere else. But she felt them before she saw them. Eyes in the darkness, watchers in the shadows. Something about this place was wrong, heavy with the weight of concealment and dark purposes. Her phone buzzed. "Lucian, you're close. I can feel it. But don't go further alone. They have guards, and they will kill first and ask questions never." Emma texted back, "Meet me at the old textile factory, 15 minutes. She waited in her car, watching the building Lucian had indicated. It was 3 stories of crumbling brick and broken windows, surrounded by a chain-link fence that looked newer than the rest of the property. Security cameras, too, though they were positioned to look abandoned. Someone was definitely using this place. A shadow moved beside her car, and then Lucian was in the passenger seat, appearing from nowhere. Emma jumped, her hand going to her heart. "Sorry," he said, not sounding particularly sorry, "but you're being watched. 3 guards in the building across the street, 2 more in the warehouse to your left. Cassius's people, all of them. He's been busy rebuilding his forces. Is Nikolai in there? I don't know. I can't feel him clearly enough to pinpoint his location. But this place?" Lucian's expression darkened. "This place reeks of blood magic, dark rituals. Someone is doing things here that should never be done." "What kind of things?" "The kind that use children as fuel." Lucian's hands clenched into fists. "We need to get inside. Tonight, after dark. I can handle the guards, but we'll need a way past the wards. That's where you come in." "This?" Emma pulled out the amulet from under her shirt. "That will hide you from magical detection. Combined with my abilities, we can slip in, find what they're hiding, and get out." Lucian turned to face her fully. "But Emma, I need you to understand. Once we do this, there's no going back. Cassius will know someone is hunting him. He'll escalate. People will die." "People are already dying," Emma said quietly. "Aren't they? Children like Nikolai, being used for their powers. That's what this is really about. Not just your son, but all the children with gifts. All the ones who could tip the balance between your kind and humanity." Lucian looked at her with something like respect. "You're smarter than David gave you credit for. Yes, this is about more than one child. Cassius is building an army. Half-human children with supernatural abilities, trained from infancy to serve his cause. Nikolai was meant to be his prize, his most powerful weapon. But I got him out before the conditioning could take hold, so Cassius stole him back and started over. And the other children? Some are willing. Their parents sell them, trading their children's futures for money or power. Others are taken, like Nikolai. Orphans, runaways, children no one will miss." Lucian's voice went cold. "I've been hunting Cassius's operation for 5 years. Every time I close in, he moves. But this time, he's made a mistake. This time, he doesn't know I'm coming." Emma looked at the building, thinking of all the children who might be inside, trapped and alone and afraid. She thought of Marcus, safe at school, unaware of the darkness that swirled around him. And she thought of David, who'd made the choice to fight, even though it cost him everything. "Tonight," she said, "we go tonight, and we get all of them out. Not just Nikolai, but every child in there." "That's not possible, the security." "I don't care." Emma met his eyes, letting him see the steel in her. "Either we save all of them, or I'm not helping you. Those are my terms." Lucian studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled. David always said you were the dangerous one. I'm beginning to see why. All right, Emma-chan, we save them all. But you need to understand what that means. Cassius won't let us take his assets without a fight. There will be violence. There will be death. And once it's done, you and Marcus will be marked. You'll spend the rest of your lives looking over your shoulders. We're already marked, Emma said. The moment Marcus saw Nikolai, we were part of this. At least this way, we fight back. They spent the rest of the day planning. Lucian brought maps of the building's layout stolen from city records. He pointed out likely holding areas, guard positions, escape routes. Emma made notes, her mind racing with the logistics of what they were about to attempt. At 3 o'clock, she picked up Marcus from school. He climbed into the car full of excitement, chattering before she could even say hello. "Mom, Nick told me where he lives." Well, sort of. He said there's a big building with broken windows where the factories used to be. He said it's cold there and dark, and there are other kids, but they're not allowed to play together. Mom, I think someone's hurting him. Emma's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Did he say anything else? He said, Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. He said his dad is looking for him, that his dad is a king and will come save him soon. But he's scared his dad won't find him in time. Mom, what if we helped? What if we told his dad where he is? Emma pulled into a parking lot, putting the car in park so she could turn to face her son fully. Marcus, I need you to listen to me carefully. What you're doing, being Nick's friend, seeing him when others can't, it's very important. And yes, we're going to help him. But it's dangerous. The people who have him, they're not good people. So I need you to promise me something. What? Promise me you'll stay close to Mrs. Rodriguez tonight. No matter what happens, no matter what you hear, you stay inside our apartment and don't open the door for anyone except me. Can you do that? Marcus's eyes widened. Are you going to save Nick? I'm going to try. He thought about it for a moment, then nodded solemnly. Okay, I promise. But Mom, tell Nick his dad is coming. Tell him to hold on just a little longer. Tell him his friend Marcus said so. Emma pulled her son into a hug, breathing in the scent of his shampoo and innocence. I will, baby, I promise. That night, after Marcus was safely tucked in with Mrs. Rodriguez standing guard, Emma returned to the industrial district. She wore dark clothes and carried David's dagger, the weight of it both comforting and terrifying. The amulet hung around her neck, warm against her skin, pulsing with whatever magic it contained. Lucian was waiting in the shadows near the textile factory. He'd brought others, 3 vampires who moved with the same inhuman grace, their eyes gleaming in the darkness. One was a woman with silver hair and a cold smile. The others were men, built like warriors, carrying weapons that looked ancient and deadly. My inner circle, Lucian explained. The only ones I trust completely. They've been searching for Nikolai as long as I have. He gestured to each in turn. Katerina, my second. Dmitri and Ivan, my enforcers. They'll handle the guards while we search for the children. How many guards? Emma asked. We've counted 12, possibly more inside. Katerina's voice was accented, Russian maybe. She looked Emma up and down assessingly. You're the human, David's woman. Emma, she corrected, and I'm nobody's woman. I'm here for the children. Katerina's smile widened. I like her. She has spine. She'll need more than spine, Dmitri rumbled. He was massive, easily 6.5 feet tall, with scars crossing his face. Cassius's people are trained. They won't hesitate to kill. Neither will we, Lucian said coldly. Emma, you stay with me.
The amulet will hide you from magical detection, but not from physical sight. Stay close, stay quiet, and if I tell you to run, you run. Understood?" Emma nodded, her mouth too dry to speak. They moved like ghosts through the night, slipping past the first guard so quickly Emma barely saw what happened. One moment he was there, walking his patrol route. The next, Dmitri had him, and then he was on the ground. Unconscious or dead? Emma couldn't tell and wasn't sure she wanted to know.
The building's entrance was warded, lines of power visible to Emma's newly opened senses as shimmer in the air. But Lucian placed his hand against them, and they parted, responding to the amulet's power. They slipped inside. The interior was worse than Emma had imagined. The factory floor had been converted into cells, chain-link cages barely big enough for a child to lie down in. Some were empty. Others held small forms huddled under thin blankets, too frightened or beaten down to even look up as they passed. Emma felt rage building in her chest, hot and fierce. These were children, babies, some of them, and they'd been caged like animals. Katerina and Ivan split off, heading for the upper floors. Dmitri stayed at the entrance, standing guard. Lucian and Emma moved deeper into the building, searching each cage, looking for violet eyes and black hair. "Mom?" The small voice froze Emma's blood. She spun, searching the shadows. A boy stepped forward into the dim light filtering through the broken windows, and Emma's breath caught. It was Nikolai, Lucian's son. He was smaller than she'd expected, thinner, his pale skin marked with bruises that made her heart ache. But his eyes were alert, intelligent, and when they landed on Lucian, they went wide with shock and desperate hope. "Papa," Nikolai's voice broke. "You found me?" Lucian made a sound Emma had never heard before, something between a sob and a growl. He crossed the space in a blur, dropping to his knees in front of his son's cage, his hands reaching through the chain link to touch the boy's face, as if he couldn't quite believe he was real. "Nikolai, my son, my boy." Lucian's voice was wrecked, raw with 5 years of grief. "I found you. I finally found you." Nikolai, pressed against the cage, trying to get closer to his father. "They said you'd forgotten about me, that you'd stopped looking." "Never. I would never." Lucian's hands were shaking as he examined the lock on the cage. "I've been searching every moment of every day. I swore I would find you, and I have. Hold still. I'm going to—" "Well, isn't this touching?" The voice came from above. Emma spun, raising David's dagger, and saw a man standing on the catwalk overlooking the factory floor. He was handsome in a conventional way, with sandy hair and a charming smile that didn't reach his cold eyes. Cassius Blackthorne. She knew him instantly from David's journal descriptions. 5 years, Lucian," Cassius continued conversationally. 5 years you've been chasing shadows, searching for your precious boy. And now you've finally found him. I have to admit, I'm impressed. I didn't think even you could break through the wards we placed on this facility." Lucian rose slowly, positioning himself between Cassius and Nikolai. "You're going to die for this, Cassius, for taking my son, for everything you've done to these children." "Am I?" Cassius laughed. "I don't think so. You see, you're standing in the middle of my stronghold, surrounded by my guards, walking into a trap I set the moment your son revealed himself to that human child at the school." His eyes flicked to Emma. "Hello, Mrs. Chen. Thank you for leading Lucian right to me. We've been waiting." Emma's blood ran cold. "How did you—" "The school has cameras, mundane technology, overlooked by most of our kind, but so very useful. I saw you watching Nikolai, saw you leave with panic written all over your face. It wasn't hard to guess what came next. You'd search for answers. And naturally, Lucian would come to you, the woman with the amulet her husband stole. Cassius's smile widened. It was all quite predictable, really. Lights blazed to life around them, bright and blinding after the darkness. Emma squinted and saw shapes moving in the shadows. Dozens of them. Guards in tactical gear, armed with weapons that looked both mundane and magical. They'd walked right into an ambush. "Papa!" Nikolai pressed against his cage, terror in his voice. "It's all right, son." Lucian's voice was deadly calm. "Trust me." "Oh, don't make promises you can't keep." Cassius descended the stairs, taking his time. "You're outmatched and outnumbered. Your little rescue party upstairs has been captured. And that amulet Mrs. Chen is wearing? We've been tracking it for years. How do you think we found David in the first place?" He pulled out a device that looked like a modified cell phone. Magical Signature Tracker. The amulet hides you from scrying and supernatural detection, but basic technology? That's another matter. Emma felt sick. They'd been betrayed by the very thing meant to protect them. "Give up, Lucian," Cassius said. "Surrender, and I'll make this quick. Resist, and I'll make you watch what I do to your son, to all the children here, including Mrs. Chen's boy." He smiled at Emma's sharp intake of breath. "Oh yes, we know about Marcus. Such a sweet child, so trusting. It would be a shame if something happened to him. You touch him and You'll what?" Cassius cut her off. "You're human, Mrs. Chen. Fragile, mortal. What could you possibly do to stop me?" Emma's hand tightened on the dagger. "I'm also a mother, and you have no idea what that means." She moved before anyone could react, throwing the dagger not at Cassius but at the control panel on the wall. David had taught her to throw when they'd first started dating, a skill she'd thought useless until this moment. The blade struck true, sinking into the panel with a shower of sparks. The lights went out. In the darkness, chaos erupted. Lucian moved, a blur of deadly grace. Emma heard screams, the sound of tearing flesh, bodies hitting the floor. She dropped low, crawling toward Nikolai's cage, using the amulet's power and the darkness as cover. "Nick," she whispered urgently, "where's the lock?" Small hands found hers through the chain link. "Here." "But you need a key." Emma pulled a hairpin from her pocket, another of David's lessons, lockpicking taught during lazy Sunday afternoons. Her hands shook as she worked the lock, but muscle memory took over. She felt the pins catch, turn, release. The cage door swung open. "Come on!" Emma grabs Nikolai's hand, pulling him out. He was so light, too light, his body trembling with weakness and fear. "We need to get you out of here." "The others," Nikolai gasped. "Please, we can't leave the others." Emma looked at the rows of cages, at the children huddled inside, and made a choice that would define the rest of her life. Show me how to open them. All of them. Emergency lights kicked in, bathing everything in red. Emma saw Lucian fighting Cassius guards, moving too fast to track. Katerina and Ivan burst back onto the factory floor, bloodied but alive, Dmitri at their heels. They formed a perimeter, holding back the tide of enemies, while Emma and Nikolai ran from cage to cage, throwing open locks. Children poured out, dozens of them, ranging from toddlers to teenagers. Some ran for the exits immediately. Others stood frozen, too traumatized to understand freedom when it was offered. "Go!" Emma shouted, pointing toward the door. "Run! Get out of here!" A teenager with blue-streaked hair grabbed two of the younger children, herding them toward the exit. Others followed, a tide of small bodies fleeing into the night. But there were so many, and the guards were closing in, trying to recapture their prizes. "Emma!" Lucian's voice cut through the chaos. "Take Nikolai and go. We'll hold them off. I'm not leaving the others." You don't have a choice." He appeared beside her, blood streaking his face, though she couldn't tell if it was his or someone else's. "More guards are coming. If you don't leave now, none of you will make it out." A gunshot cracked through the air. Emma felt something hot graze her shoulder, spinning her around. She stumbled, nearly falling, and felt small arms wrap around her waist. "I've got you," Nikolai said, his voice older than his years. His violet eyes glowed in the red light. "Don't let go of me, Mrs. Chen. Whatever happens, don't let go." Power exploded from the boy, a wave of force that sent guards flying. Emma felt it wash over her, around her, through her, magic so pure and strong it made her teeth ache. This was what Cassius wanted, what he'd been trying to harness. Nikolai was a conduit of raw supernatural power, amplified by his half-human blood. "Run!" Lucian commanded again, and this time Emma listened. She grabbed Nikolai's hand and ran toward the exit, dodging between guards and cage bars and fallen bodies. Behind her, she heard Lucian and his people fighting, holding the line so the children could escape. Gunfire mixed with inhuman screams, and Emma prayed to God she didn't believe in that they would all make it out alive. They burst into the night air, into blessed darkness and the cool October wind. Children scattered in every direction, disappearing into the industrial maze. Emma pulled Nikolai toward her car, her breath coming in ragged gasps, her shoulder burning where the bullet had grazed her. "Get in," she ordered, shoving him into the back seat. "Stay down." She started the engine with shaking hands, pulling away from the building just as it exploded behind them. The force of it rocked her car, and Emma saw flames reaching toward the sky, turning night into day. She didn't know if Lucian had set the charges or if Cassius had decided to destroy the evidence, but either way, the factory was burning. "Please let them have gotten out," she prayed. "Please let them be safe." She drove randomly, taking turns at random, making sure they weren't followed. In the back seat, Nikolai curled into a ball, his body shaking with shock and exhaustion. Emma wanted to stop, wanted to comfort him, but first they needed distance. Finally, when she was sure they were clear, she pulled into an empty parking garage and killed the engine. Her hands were shaking so hard she could barely unbuckle her seatbelt. Adrenaline crashed over her in waves, and she realized she was crying, tears streaming down her face as the magnitude of what they'd just done hit her. "Mrs. Chen?" Nikolai's small voice came from the back seat. "Are you okay?" Emma let out a laugh that was half sob. "Am I okay? Nick, sweetheart, you just saved all of us back there. Are you okay?" The boy climbed into the front seat, moving with that same odd grace his father had. Up close, Emma could see the family resemblance, the sharp cheekbones, the intensity of his gaze. But where Lucian was cold marble, Nikolai still held warmth, humanity, the ghost of the life his mother had given him. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I've been not okay for a very long time, but tonight I felt my papa. After 5 years of silence, I felt him. And I met Marcus's mom, who he says is the bravest person he knows. And I'm out. I'm free." His violet eyes filled with tears. "So maybe I'm starting to be okay." Emma pulled him into a hug. This strange child who'd brought violence and chaos and impossible choices into her carefully ordered life. "You're safe now, I promise. Your father will find us and we'll figure this out together." "Marcus," Nikolai whispered against her shoulder. "The guards mentioned Marcus. They were going to—" Emma's blood turned to ice. Going to what? Take him. Use him to control Papa. They had people going to your apartment. Nikolai pulled back, his eyes urgent. "Mrs. Chen, they might already have him." Emma's phone was already in her hand, dialing Mrs. Rodriguez. It rang, and rang, and rang. No answer.
No, no, no. Emma started the car, her hands steadier now, purpose overriding fear. Hold on, Nick. We're going to get my son. She drove through red lights and stop signs, pushed the car past any safe speed, racing against time and terror. Let him be safe, she prayed. Let Mrs. Rodriguez have taken him somewhere else, anywhere else. Let me be wrong. The apartment building looked normal, too normal. Emma parked in the fire lane and ran for the stairs, Nikolai right behind her. The door to her apartment was ajar, hanging open on broken hinges. Marcus! Emma burst inside, and the scene before her made her heart stop. Mrs. Rodriguez lay unconscious on the floor, blood trickling from a wound on her head. Furniture was overturned, and standing in the middle of the chaos, holding Marcus by the arm, was a woman in tactical gear, her expression cold and professional. "Hello, Mrs. Chen," the woman said calmly. "I have something that belongs to you, and you have something that belongs to my employer. I suggest we make a trade." "Mom!" Marcus struggled in the woman's grip, but she held him effortlessly. "I'm sorry. I know I promised to stay inside, but Mrs. Rodriguez needed help and—" "It's okay, baby." Emma forced her voice to stay calm, though inside she was screaming. "It's going to be okay. Let him go," she said to the woman. "He's just a child." "So is the one behind you." The woman's eyes flicked to Nikolai. "Yet that child has power worth wars. Hand him over, and you can have your son back. Simple exchange." "There's no such thing." The voice came from the shattered window. Lucian stood on the fire escape, bloodied and burned, but alive. Relief flooded through Emma at the sight of him. "Let the children go, Rachel. This is between Cassius and me." "Cassius is dead," Rachel said flatly. "The building collapsed. He didn't make it out. Which means I'm in charge now. And I'm not interested in wars or vengeance. I want profit. That boy is worth millions to the right buyers. I'm worth more." Lucian climbed through the window with predatory grace. "Let both children go, and you can have me." A vampire king is worth far more on the black market than a half-blood child. Rachel considered this, her grip still tight on Marcus. "How do I know you won't just kill me the moment I release them?" "You have my word." The word of a vampire? The word of a father. Lucian met Emma's eyes across the room. "I swear on my son's life, on everything I hold sacred, that I will surrender peacefully if you let them both go." Emma saw the trap immediately. Lucian would sacrifice himself for his son and for Marcus, but that left both children vulnerable to whatever came next, unless— "No," Emma said clearly. "We're not doing this. Rachel, you're right that Nikolai is valuable, but you're missing the bigger picture. Those children you had caged up, they're scattered all over the city now. Free, traumatized, and very, very angry. Some of them have powers that make Nick look tame. And they all know your face. They all know what you did to them." She took a step forward. "Let my son go. Let Nikolai go. And run. Take whatever money you have hidden away and disappear before those children find you. Because they will find you. And when they do, they won't be interested in trades or negotiations. They'll want blood." Rachel's expression flickered with something that might have been fear. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Emma pulled out her phone, pulling up the news. Already stories were breaking. Mysterious fire at industrial building, children found wandering the streets, reports of supernatural activity. It's already starting. The veil's been ripped away. People are asking questions. And all those children you experimented on, they're talking. You have maybe an hour before law enforcement and supernatural authorities converge on this location. Your call. Take the smart play and run, or wait here arguing until they arrive. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Rachel released Marcus, shoving him toward Emma. This isn't over. Yes, Lucien said softly. It is. He moved, a blur of speed, and Rachel crumpled to the floor, unconscious before she hit the ground. Lucien caught Marcus before the boy could fall, steadying him with gentle hands. That was well done, he said to Emma, the bluff about the children, very convincing. Who said I was bluffing? Emma grabbed Marcus, pulling him into a fierce hug. Are you okay? Did she hurt you? I'm fine, Mom. Mrs. Rodriguez is hurt, though. And there was another man, but he ran when he heard the sirens. Marcus pulled back, his eyes bright with adrenaline and fear and excitement. Mom, you saved Nick. You really did it. Emma looked at Nikolai, who stood in the doorway, staring at his father with desperate hope. We all saved each other, she said softly. That's how this works. Lucien crossed to his son, and Emma turned away, giving them their moment of reunion. She checked on Mrs. Rodriguez, finding her breathing steady, the head wound superficial. She'd be okay. They'd all be okay. Emma? Lucien's voice made her turn. He stood with Nikolai in his arms, holding his son like he'd never let go. I owe you a debt I can never repay. You've given me back everything that matters. You don't owe me anything. We were in this together. Emma met his eyes. But we have a problem. Rachel was right. People are asking questions. The authorities will come. The supernatural world is about to collide with the mundane one, and our children are right in the center of it. Then we make sure they're protected. Lucien set Nikolai down, keeping one hand on his son's shoulder as if afraid he might disappear again. I have resources, safe houses, people who can help. Both of you, you and Marcus, you'll need to disappear for a while. Let me help you. Emma looked around her small apartment, at the life she'd built from nothing after David left. She thought of her job at the diner, Marcus's school, the comfortable routine they'd established. All of it would have to be left behind now. But then she looked at Marcus, alive and safe, grinning at Nikolai like they'd just had the grandest adventure. She looked at Nikolai, free from his cage, reunited with his father. And she looked at Lucien, this ancient creature who'd trusted her, fought beside her, kept his word even when it cost him. Okay, she said, well, disappear. But only for a little while. I'm not running forever, Lucien. Those other children from the facility, they'll need help, support, someone who understands what they've been through. I want to be part of that. Lucien smiled, and for the first time, it reached his eyes. You want to fight. I want to protect. There's a difference. Emma straightened her shoulders. But yes, if fighting is part of that, then I'll fight. Someone has to make sure this never happens again. Mom's a warrior now, Marcus announced proudly. Wait until I tell my class. You're not telling your class anything, Emma said firmly, then softened. At least not until we figure out a cover story that doesn't involve vampires and magic and industrial explosions. How about won the lottery, taking a year to travel, Lucien suggested. I can make that story quite convincing, complete with paper trail and everything. Emma raised an eyebrow. You can do that? I'm a very old vampire with extensive resources and centuries of experience manipulating human systems. Creating a new identity is child's play. His expression turned serious. But Emma, once you do this, once you step fully into this world, there's no going back. Your life will never be normal again. Normal is overrated, Emma said, and meant it. Besides, I watched my son share his lunch with an invisible boy and ended up storming a supernatural prison. I think we passed normal a while ago. Marcus tugged on her sleeve. Does this mean Nick and I can be real friends now? Like, openly? Nikolai looked at his father hopefully. Lucien sighed, but Emma saw the warmth in his expression.
Yes, you can be friends. Though I think perhaps we should live in the same city to make that easier. Emma, how do you feel about London? London? Emma blinked. As in England? As in my seat of power, the place where I can best protect both families. There's a school there for children like Marcus and Nikolai, children with gifts who need specialized education. And there's work for someone with your particular skills and bravery. Lucian's smile turned sly. I could use someone to manage the refuge center I'm going to establish for the children we rescued. Someone human who understands their perspective. Someone who's proven she'll fight for the innocent no matter the cost. Emma felt the future opening before her, bright and terrifying and full of possibility. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a purpose and a partnership. Lucian extended his hand. What do you say, Emma Chen? Ready to change the world? Emma thought of all the children who'd run into the night, traumatized but free. She thought of the ones still out there, hidden away, being used and abused by people like Cassius. She thought of Marcus with his kind heart and inherited gifts, growing up in a world that would never understand him unless someone built bridges between the mundane and magical. She took Lucian's hand, his cold skin familiar now rather than frightening. Partners, she agreed. But I have conditions. Those children get therapy, education, and choice. No one forces them into anything. They heal first. Agreed. And Marcus and Nikolai get to be kids. Real kids with normal activities and freedom and stupid jokes, not soldiers or weapons or political pawns. Agreed. Lucian's grip tightened slightly. You have my word, Emma, and I always keep my word. Emma looked at her son, who was already chattering with Nikolai about London and what adventures they'd have. She looked at Mrs. Rodriguez, groaning as she regained consciousness. She looked at her small apartment, with its water-stained ceiling and second-hand furniture, and she felt no regret about leaving it behind. This was right. Terrifying, yes. Dangerous, absolutely, but right. Then I guess we're moving to London, she said. The next weeks passed in a blur. Lucian was as good as his word. Emma's lottery win appeared in the local paper, complete with photos and quotes she didn't remember giving. The apartment was packed up, her few possessions shipped overseas. Mrs. Rodriguez recovered and accepted a generous thank you payment with tears and hugs, promising to visit once they were settled. The children from the facility were tracked down, one by one, and brought to safe houses. Some reunited with families who'd thought them lost. Others, with nowhere to go, became Emma's first charges in the refuge center Lucian established in a renovated manor outside London. Emma threw herself into the work, learning about trauma care and supernatural politics and the delicate balance required to help these damaged children heal. It was hard, often heartbreaking, but also deeply fulfilling. She was making a difference, real, tangible difference in lives that had known only darkness. Marcus thrived in his new school, making friends among the other gifted children. His abilities, whatever they would become, remained dormant for now, but he was monitored carefully, lovingly, by teachers who understood. And through it all, Nikolai was by his side, the two boys inseparable. Emma watched them playing in the manor's garden one evening, their laughter carrying on the wind, and felt Lucian approach before she saw him. He moved like smoke, silent and deliberate. "They're happy," he observed, standing beside her at the window. "They are," Emma agreed. "How's the council taking your new humanitarian project?" With suspicion and grudging respect. Lucian's lips quirked. "But they can't argue with results."
The children we've saved, the families we've reunited. It's good publicity for vampires at a time when we desperately need it. Besides, I'm finding I quite like this role. Protector rather than predator. It suits me. Because of Nikolai? Because of you. Lucian turned to look at her, his violet eyes serious. You reminded me what I'd forgotten in my long existence. That power is nothing without purpose. that strength should protect, not dominate, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose compassion over vengeance. Emma felt her cheeks warm. I just did what any mother would do. No, you did what a hero does. Lucian reached out, gently touching the scar on her shoulder where the bullet had grazed her. You walked into darkness to save children who weren't yours. You risked everything for the innocent. That's not motherhood, Emma. That's courage. Can't it be both? His smile was soft, transforming his face into something almost human. Yes, I suppose it can. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching their children play. Marcus showed Nikolai some kind of hand-clapping game, and the vampire boy laughed, actually laughed, the sound pure and bright and full of the childhood he'd been denied for so long. "We did it," Emma whispered. "We actually did it." "We did," Lucian agreed, "and we're just getting started. There are more children out there, Emma. More facilities like the one Cassius ran. More people who see supernatural children as resources rather than individuals. We've won one battle, but the war is just beginning," Emma finished. She thought of Rachel, who'd escaped into the night. She thought of all the other Cassiuses out there running operations in the shadows, and she felt purpose settle into her bones like steel. "Good. I'm ready." Lucian looked at her with something that might have been admiration, or might have been something deeper. "David was a fool to leave you." "David was protecting us," Emma corrected softly. "And he led us to this, in a way. Led us to you, to Nikolai, to this fight. Maybe that was his purpose all along." "Perhaps." Lucian turned back to the window. "The world is changing, Emma. The veil between the supernatural and mundane is thinning. Soon there will be no more hiding what we are. And when that day comes, people like you, humans who bridge both worlds, who see us as something other than monsters, will be the key to whatever comes next." "No pressure or anything," Emma said dryly. He laughed, the sound surprising and genuine. "You'll be fine. After all, you stormed a prison, rescued dozens of children, and earned the loyalty of a vampire king. Everything after that is just details." "Is that what you are now? Loyal to me?" Lucian met her eyes, and Emma saw something in them that made her breath catch. "I'm many things, Emma Chen. But yes, among them, I am your ally. Your friend, if you'll have me. And perhaps, someday, something more. But for now, friendship and partnership are enough." Emma's heart beat faster, but she kept her voice steady. Friendship and partnership are more than enough. They're everything. They stayed at the window until the sun began to set, painting the garden in shades of gold and amber. Marcus and Nikolai came running inside, breathless and dirty and perfectly happy, already making plans for tomorrow's adventures. Emma hugged her son, breathing in the scent of grass and boy and pure joy, and felt the pieces of her new life settle into place. She'd lost so much. David, her old life, the simple safety of ignorance. But she'd gained something too. Purpose, family, a place in a larger story. And as Lucian swept Nikolai up onto his shoulders, making the boy shriek with laughter, Emma realized something else. She'd found hope. Not just for her son, or for Nikolai, or for the children in her care, but for herself. For the first time since David had left that note 6 years ago, Emma Chen felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be, fighting for the innocent, building bridges between worlds, proving that strength and compassion could coexist, that different didn't mean dangerous, that love in all its forms was the most powerful magic of all. "Mom?" Marcus tugged on her hand. "Nick's dad is making dinner. He says he learned to cook in France 300 years ago. Can we help?" Emma laughed, ruffling his hair. "Of course we can. Come on, let's see what a 300-year-old vampire thinks passes for dinner."
As they walked toward the kitchen, Emma caught Lucian's eye over the boys' heads. He smiled. Not his cold, dangerous smile, but something warm and real. And in that moment, Emma knew with absolute certainty that whatever came next, whatever battles they'd face, whatever darkness threatened, they would face it together. A single mother and a vampire king, brought together by their children's friendship and bound by their determination to make the world better. Stranger alliances had changed history. Maybe, just maybe, theirs would too. Outside, night fell over London, and in houses across the city, children with gifts slept safely, protected by the refuge Emma had built and the oath Lucian had sworn. The world was changing. The old rules were crumbling. And Emma Chen, who'd started the day watching her son share a sandwich with an invisible boy, ended it as a warrior, a bridge builder, and a woman who'd found her purpose in the most unexpected place. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in years, it was also bright with possibility. And that was enough.